I recently got my brain scanned at the Amen Clinic, and my results have been simply amazing. So I wanted to share my experience with you today. This is one of my longer videos, but I think you'll find this information to be extremely valuable. Near the end of the video, I'll be sharing a list of some really cool statistics which I recently learned from Dr. Amen himself. Anyway, let me give you a quick outline of this video so you'll know what to expect. First, we'll talk about my backstory and why I needed help. Then we'll talk about how I discovered the Amen Clinic. We'll talk about the brain scan process, my brain scan results, my diagnosis, the plan and treatment recommendations. I've got a brain optimization information packet for you. We'll talk about what makes Amen clinics different. And then we'll have a closing and a few amazing statistics, as well as some website links and resources. So let's talk about my backstory. Over the last few years, I've been very public about my mental health issues. I truly think everybody stands to benefit from an open and honest conversation. There's nothing worse than feeling like everybody is out living their dream while you're daydreaming about ending your own. The first years of my life were amazing. When I was about 17 years old, I started hearing a lot about depression and people committing suicide. At that time, my brain simply couldn't comprehend these things. I'll never forget the day I was riding in the car with my mom back in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I specifically remember saying, "You know, Mom, life really isn't that hard. I don't understand why people insist on complicating their lives to the point of depression and suicide." Little did I know that one day I would eat those words. So let's fast forward about 12 years from that conversation. On September 26, 2007, I went to urgent care because I had really bad night sweats and chest pains the night before. They immediately transferred me to St. Mary's Hospital in Grand Rapids, Michigan. That night, I actually had a mini stroke, also known as a TIA, and fell into a coma. When I finally came out of the coma, maybe 6 hours later, my speech was impaired, but I was assured that my brain would recover fairly quickly because I was only 29 years old. Just a few days later, I ended up having open heart surgery, a mitral valve repair, in an effort to prevent any further strokes. Because the doctors were so good and the surgery went so smoothly, I assumed I'd eventually return to become the same happy person I always was. What I quickly learned was that life would never be the same. As it turned out, my 30s were the worst years of my life. I was tired, irritable, angry, depressed, I had brain fog, and eventually became obsessed with ending my life. What I eventually discovered was that many of my symptoms were similar to that of adrenal fatigue. So, to recap, I had a mini stroke when I was 29, struggled for 10 years, and then began treatment for adrenal fatigue at the age of 39. This treatment helped a lot, but I still struggled whenever I got overly stressed out. About 3.5 months ago, I had an appointment for my first colonoscopy. In preparation for that, you're not allowed to take any supplements for 5 days prior to the exam. That week was very challenging for me. Without the benefit of my supplements, I felt really tired and my restless legs were worse than ever. When my restless legs woke me up at night, I became extremely annoyed, especially since I wasn't able to take anything to resolve it. These circumstances caused me to smack myself in the head repeatedly, which I realize is such a weird thing to do. At this point, what I realized is that even though I'd been treating myself for adrenal fatigue for about 6 years, it appeared these supplements were only acting like a band-aid, as opposed to actually healing my fatigued body. This is when I realized that my issue was probably deeper than just the adrenal fatigue. In my mind, it seemed like my body should be able to handle itself without supplements for 5 short days. As I thought about it even further, I realized something else. Before my mini stroke at the age of 29, I couldn't even comprehend suicide. But during my mid-30s, all I wanted to do was end my life. So it only made sense that something inside my brain changed during that TIA event. Okay, now that you know my backstory, I'd like to share with you a list of symptoms that I also shared with my doctor. Maybe some of you will be able to relate to them. Number 1. To me, life wasn't fun. It was exhausting. Even taking a shower felt like work. Number 2. I would wake up each day with morning depression. Each new day felt like such an annoying obligation. Number 3. My mood was all over the place, and it seemed to be closely tied to my energy level. Number 4. I didn't really want to commit suicide. I simply wanted to somehow just be done with life. Number 5. I was full of anger. I was angry that I had to deal with life every day. I was also really angry that I didn't simply die when I was in the coma. Number 6. The anxiety and brain fog just added to all this frustration. Anyway, now that I'm 45 years old, I believe that Dr. Amen and his team have pinpointed my problem and found a real solution. So let's talk about it. All right, now let's talk about how I discovered the Amen Clinic. I discovered Dr. Daniel Amen a few months ago when I saw him on a YouTube channel called The Diary of a CEO. The Diary of a CEO is one of my favorite YouTube channels because they're very good at finding and interviewing some of the smartest people in the world. Dr. Amen was chosen because he's an expert in a brain imaging process which measures blood flow and activity in the brain. Dr. Amen goes on to explain that psychiatrists are the only doctors who don't actually look at the organ they're treating. Instead, they've historically diagnosed patients based upon their symptoms. Their brain imaging work has been showing that mental health issues are simply brain issues. They've scanned over 250,000 brains, and most people see significant improvement in just 2 months. They've got 10 locations across the U.S., and 85% of patients report a better quality of life after treatment. I've been watching a lot of Dr. Amen's videos recently. He said something amazing just a few days ago. By scanning your brain, they are actually able to predict Alzheimer's disease 20 years before your symptoms occur. In addition, Amen clinics are able to help people who struggle with emotional issues such as anxiety, depression, and bipolar disorder, behavioral challenges like addictions, weight control, or anger management issues, cognitive problems such as memory issues, Alzheimer's disease, and dementia, and learning challenges like ADD or ADHD. Dr. Amen does a video series on YouTube called Scan My Brain. I've watched about 10 or 15 of these videos. Because all of his clients are influential people, I assumed the brain scan was going to be overly expensive. I had in my mind that it would be around $10,000 to $15,000 and that they'd be booked up for 5 or 6 months in advance. Because I was currently dealing with really bad morning depression and couldn't shake these suicidal thoughts, I decided to give them a call. The lady on the phone was extremely nice and very non-judgmental. That first phone call lasted about 15 minutes. She explained that the cost was $5,000 and that they could get me in almost right away. I took a few days to do a little more research before booking the appointment, which required a $500 deposit. Anyway, let me briefly explain the brain scan process to you. Okay, now let's talk about the brain scan process. First, you have to fill out a lengthy questionnaire online. I think mine took about 90 minutes. Then, a friend or family member also has to answer some questions about you and your behavior online. Day 1 at the clinic, they do a brain scan at concentration. Also on day 1 at the clinic, you have to take an online brain assessment, which takes about 45 minutes. I've got a funny story about this in just 1 minute. On the second day at the clinic, you go back and they scan your brain while you're relaxed. Then you just have to await your results. My follow-up appointment was actually done via a video chat. So, before I explain my results, I've got to tell you a funny story about the online brain assessment that I took at the clinic on day 1. The assessment consisted of a bunch of questions and puzzles. Because they don't allow you to drink coffee the day of your brain scan, I woke up feeling extremely tired and irritable. One of the assessments consisted of clicking the mouse every time you see matching letters. Well, I misunderstood the instructions, and the assessment seemed to be going on forever. I was so annoyed that I actually envisioned myself putting my fist through that computer screen. It took every bit of willpower for me to not do so. That night, I was laying in bed, thinking about how annoyed I got with that assessment, and came up with an idea. In the lobby of the Amen Clinic, I noticed they were selling a whole assortment of proprietary supplements. Because I was craving any sort of potential solution, I knew that I needed to try them. So, when I went back for my scan on day 2, I picked up their Brain and Body Power Max supplements. I took them that evening and, to my surprise, woke up the next day with no morning depression. It almost seemed too good to be true. I've been taking them for 3 weeks now and haven't had any depression whatsoever. Anyway, I'll tell you more about these supplements a bit later on. Alright, now let's take a look at my brain scan results. Getting my results was extremely emotional for me. I feel like 16 years of my life were stolen from me, from the age of 29 until 45. At a time when I should have been building a career and finding a wife, I was busy thinking of ways to end my life. Not only that, but I went years without talking to my brothers. I've lost so many friends and burned so many bridges, mainly because of my unhappiness and irritability. Let me quickly explain this brain scan. A brain SPECT scan is a nuclear medicine exam that assesses blood flow and activity in the brain. SPECT is an acronym for Single Photon Emission Computed Tomography. It uses a radioactive compound to diagnose brain diseases. The imaging basically shows us 3 things: areas of the brain that work well, areas of the brain that work too hard, and areas of the brain that do not work hard enough. Because the Amen Clinic has scanned over 250,000 brains, they've been able to find multiple correlations with brain physiology and human behavior. Okay, first I wanted to show you a couple of sample images. These are the images that show blood flow in the brain. I'm no doctor, but based upon the videos that I've watched from Dr. Amen, I have learned a few things that I wanted to share with you. So on the left, we've got a healthy surface rendering, and what's important is that there's no holes and that the outside is as smooth as possible. Now, if you go to the middle image, that is a temporal lobe dysfunction. And I wanted to show you that one because my doctor has basically came up with a diagnosis that shows that I have a left temporal lobe dysfunction due to the TIA that I had back in 2007. And in a second, I'll show you my scan and we can compare them side by side. And then the toxic surface scan, you can see all the holes in the brain. And those aren't actually holes. What that is showing is sleepy brain tissue that just isn't getting blood flow. So the toxicity part is that they probably lived in a moldy house or maybe high levels of mercury or something along those lines. So I just wanted to explain that to you. There are 2 different scans that I'm going to show you today. This one is the blood flow scan, and we're looking for no holes, and we're looking for the outside to be as smooth as possible. And the holes aren't actually missing tissue, it's actually sleepy tissue that just isn't getting blood flow. So one last thing I wanted to mention about this scan, and that is the orientation of the brain. So if you look in the lower right, that is the top part of the brain. And if you look at the upper left, that is the bottom part of the brain. And if you look at the upper right, I believe that's the right side of the brain. And if you look at the lower left, that is the left side of the brain. So that gives you an idea as to the orientation of these photos. So now let me show you my actual blood flow scans. Alright, so what we've got here is a healthy surface rendering on the left and a temporal lobe dysfunction on the right. And then in the middle is my brain scan at baseline, which I think is another way of saying this is my brain when I'm in a relaxed state versus when I'm concentrating on something. So as you can see, I've got some holes, which, as I mentioned, is sleepy tissue, lack of blood flow, and it's quite bumpy. My doctor didn't seem too overly concerned about it, but in my mind, it looks pretty bad. But the biggest thing is the temporal lobe dysfunction, because that is a big contributor in regulating your mood. So I wanted to move on to something that I'm going to talk a little bit more about in depth, and that's instead of the blood flow, now we're talking about brain activity. And what we've got here is we've got my scan at concentration on the left and my scan when I'm relaxed on the right, and then in the middle we've got a healthy scan. So the blue is standard activity. Red is the top 15%, and white is the top 8%. So white being that your brain is really active in that spot. So once again, blue is normal activity. Red is the top 15%. White is the top 8%. So when it's white, it's really, really active. So I wanted to show you this one. I really quickly wanted to flip over and show you a different scan here. This is a hyperfrontality active scan. And that is just bananas. I can't even imagine what it says severe hyperfrontality, a pattern consistent with OCD. Now that makes sense. And I'm actually going to click off of that because that kind of scares me a bit to look at that. So now let's go back to the healthy active rendering in the middle there. So the brain is the same orientation as it was in the previous scan, where you've got the top and the bottom and the right and the left. So I just wanted to show you this for a second, and then I'm actually going to read you the results from my medical record, because my doctor kind of goes in depth about some of this stuff, and I don't know exactly where the locations are. But I'll read it to you, and a lot of it makes a lot of sense based on the symptoms that I was having. So let's get into it. Okay, so I'm going to read the findings that I received from my doctor that he put in my medical report. Number 1, increased left focal thalamic tracer activity seen in both studies, more intense with concentration. This finding may be present in normally functioning individuals. However, we also frequently see it in people who have issues with depression or mood cycles. Clinical correlation is important. In our research, there is a trend for left-sided problems to be associated with anger and irritability. In our experience, we have seen focal increased limbic activity more on one side than the other to be associated with mood-related issues. Number 2, increased left and right basal ganglia tracer activity seen in both studies, more intense at rest. This finding may be present in people who are normal. However, we also see it very frequently in people who struggle with anxiety. Left-sided problems are often associated with irritability, right-sided problems more often associated with inwardly directed anxiety. When it is normal, we often see it associated with people who have high levels of motivation. Number 3, decreased tracer activity in the left inferior orbital prefrontal cortex seen on both studies, more with concentration, and decreased tracer activity in the right inferior orbital prefrontal cortex seen on both studies. Decreased activity in the inferior orbital prefrontal cortex during a concentration task is often associated with impulsivity, short attention span, distractibility, and difficulties with organization and planning. We have seen a strong correlation between this finding and ADHD and ADD, especially when this occurs during the performance of a concentration task. Number 4, decreased left temporal lobe tracer activity seen on both studies, more at rest, and decreased right temporal lobe tracer activity seen on both studies, more with concentration. This abnormality may be associated with several different symptoms, including mood instability, irritability, memory problems, abnormal perceptions, auditory or visual illusions, periods of déjà vu, periods of anxiety or irritability with little provocation, and unexplained headaches or abdominal pain. Number 5, brain injury. A combination of our findings is consistent with the existence of brain injury in this patient. These findings include decreased prefrontal pole activity, decreased dorsal prefrontal cortex activity, decreased temporal lobe activity, decreased parietal lobe activity, and decreased occipital lobe activity. So, I'm assuming the aforementioned brain injury was caused by my TIA in 2007. For me, it was actually reassuring to hear this. It seemingly confirms the assumption I mentioned at the beginning of this video, that something changed during my TIA event. Alright, now let's talk about my diagnosis. The diagnoses are listed as major depressive disorder, recurrent in remission unspecified, also generalized anxiety disorder, and personal history of TIA, and cerebral infarction without residual deficits. Now let's discuss the treatment recommendations. This is directly from my medical record, so this is, for the most part, my doctor speaking to me. Jason is a very pleasant man I met today on camera to go over his brain imaging and his clinical case. I was most impressed with the decreased activity that he had throughout his brain, predominantly in his left temporal lobe, which is suspected the same location where he had his TIA in 2007, as his symptoms involved issues with language and writing, and he is right-handed. Left temporal lobe problems can also contribute to mood problems and depression, which he has had only subsequent to this episode. Interestingly enough, since beginning the Brain and Body Power Max supplements, he has had a remarkable positive response, which I suspect is because some of the ingredients in the brain supplement increase blood flow to the brain and are anti-inflammatory agents and antioxidant products. Today, his main desire was to work on a proactive approach to brain health with supplements and a healthy diet. We spent a good amount of time discussing intermittent fasting, specific diet approaches, the sequencing of such, as well as exercise, particularly while fasting, in order to boost growth hormone and testosterone. I also suggested exploring hyperbaric oxygen therapy locally with a soft chamber that is IHA certified, 40 sessions to start, with approximately 2 or 3 sessions per week to help with overall brain health. I look forward to speaking with him early next year on how he is doing. Nutraceuticals and supplements. Based on your history, results of your assessments that were performed as part of the evaluation, and your prior treatment response, I would recommend that you start the following supplements. I am primarily going to make recommendations among our own branded nutraceuticals simply because I know they are manufactured to the highest level of quality and purity, and that rigorous scientific thought and study went into their formulation to specifically address the needs of your brain type. First is the Brain and Body Power Max, which, as I mentioned, I've already been taking for 3 weeks. A 30-day supply costs $146. It contains the same 3 supplements as Brain and Body Power, Neurovite Plus, Brain and Memory Power Boost, and Omega-3 Power, but with 50% more brain and memory power boost and double the Omega-3 power. Recommended for those who have a greater or more critical need for brain health support. Enhances brain function overall, including recall and retention, clear thinking and other cognitive functions, mood and emotional balance, and health and well-being. Suggested use is take 1 packet twice daily with meals. Number 2 is the GABA Calming Support. 90 capsules cost $42. This combination of clinically proven ingredients helps the body cope with restlessness, irritability, or other challenges associated with occasional anxiety. It relaxes the body and the mind, helps correct nutrient deficiencies associated with stress, and generally promotes a state of calm without causing drowsiness. Dosing: take between 1 to 4 pills up to 3 times a day as needed for anxiety and stress. You might start low and find your sweet spot of exactly how many pills it takes for you to get your results. You can use this as a standing order or just taken on an as-needed basis before you know you are about to enter into a stressful situation. Number 3 is Happy Saffron. 90 capsules go for about $51. Happy Saffron is a potent mood supplement that brings together 3 nutraceutical ingredients designed to improve mood, help cope with anxious feelings, and enhance focus while under mental strain. The 3 nutraceutical ingredients are Afron saffron, a highly concentrated, standardized saffron extract found to improve mood, anxiousness, and sleep quality in double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled clinical trials. Longvita optimized curcumin, an efficiently absorbed, standardized curcumin concentrate that lessened fatigue and frustration while improving performance on a mentally demanding test. Zinc as glycinate, a mineral vital for life and essential for at least 300 enzymes, concentrated mostly in the brain and helping regulate brain circuits linked to healthy mood. Dosing, we recommend adults take 3 capsules daily between meals. Number 4 is lithium orotate. 60 capsules go for $14. Lithium orotate is an ultra-pure, safe, and well-absorbed dietary source of lithium. The orotate part of the molecule delivers lithium to the body in its biochemically active form, the positively charged lithium ion. Orotate occurs naturally in our diet and is also routinely made in the body. Higher lithium levels in drinking water have been linked to better self-control. Additionally, higher lithium blood levels are linked to lower incidences of self-harm. Dietary supplementation with low-dose lithium promotes healthy mood, sociability, and self-esteem. Another benefit is that low-dose lithium supplementation supports cognitive function in the elderly. The orotate form of lithium is well absorbed and well tolerated. Dosing? We recommend a daily intake of 5 or 10 milligrams. Some nutritionally informed physicians recommend up to 20 milligrams per day for patients under their supervision. Number 5, magnesium glycinate. This is available on Amazon. 360 capsules go for $84. Dosing 100 milligrams to 200 milligrams at bedtime for restless legs and to help promote sleep. Number 6, Pro Brain Biotics Max. 60 capsules goes for $49. With a premium blend of powerful probiotic strains and a total 30 billion colony-forming units per day, Pro Brain Biotics Max is one of the most powerful and effective scientifically researched probiotics available. These fully defined probiotic strains benefit the brain, mood, stress, and occasional anxious feelings. Immunity, help to increase immune cell population, and gut health, bowel regularity and comfort, and intestinal probiotic balance. Dosing, adults take 1 capsule daily with food. Number 7, ashwagandha. This is also available on Amazon. 200 capsules go for $14. My doctor says you can continue your ashwagandha for your adrenal glands support. Let's talk about the nutritional plan. So, historically, my diet has been tailored to improve fitness and digestion, but I've never optimized it for brain health. So I was actually really excited to learn more about this. Let's talk about the dietary strategies. The brain uses 20 to 30% of the calories you consume, so a brain-healthy diet is critical to your treatment success. Number 1, eliminate sugar. Number 2, enjoy healthy fats. Your brain is 60% fat when all the water is removed. Give your body a healthy fat serving 4 to 5 times per day. Sources of healthy fats include nuts, nut butters, avocado, oils, seeds, coconut, and omega-rich seafood. Use food as medicine and get some of your omega-3 fatty acids from salmon, sardines, flaxseed, or walnuts. Number 3, high-protein diet. Number 4, intermittent fasting. As we spoke about today, I recommend time-restricted eating / intermittent fasting. This can help your brain and body in so many ways. Aim for a 16-hour fast every day with an 8-hour window where you can eat. Preferably only 2 meals a day with no snacking in between. Hence, it's not just what you eat, but the timing of eating. By doing this, you are allowing your body to not continuously spike insulin. Insulin is a hormone that is designed for fat storage. It takes sugar out of your bloodstream and stores it as fat in your liver and body tissues. The worst is storing it as visceral fat, which is inflammatory and toxic. By doing this, your body begins to develop what is called metabolic flexibility, using ketones as an alternative energy source from sugar. This is known to improve brain function, particularly cognitive functioning/memory. But by doing so, your body is finally able to burn off body fat that it has been storing. Because in our modern day culture, we eat 3 times a day with snacks, the body is continuously in storage mode, which is not particularly healthy. If you can make it to 18 hours, you can start to induce autophagy, which is helpful to remove cellular debris and broken protein fragments from your brain, to thereby help cognition. Ease your way into this. For example, after you are used to doing a 16-hour fast daily, you can attempt to do this longer fast on a Saturday or Sunday. For more information on this, I encourage you to check out various doctors and experts on this field on YouTube. I'll put links for these 6 YouTube channels in the description of this video. All of these doctors have multiple videos on this very subject for more detailed information, or you can listen in podcast form. One more final point. After you fast, make sure that you are breaking your fast not with carbohydrates, but rather with healthy fats and protein. Then, if you want to eat some carbohydrates after about 20 minutes, you can. This is critical because you are now in an insulin-sensitive state, and you don't want to just take sugar and store it as fat all over again. If all of this is just way too overwhelming or difficult for you, just try your best. Even small changes can be helpful. Ease into this. This is for the long haul, for your metabolic and brain health. Alright, now let's talk about the exercise plan. I've heard Dr. Amen say that exercise increases blood flow to the brain. This is why most people tend to come up with great ideas and find a bit of mental clarity when they go for walks. A regular exercise regimen. The health benefits from physical exercise are truly amazing. Solid research has shown that regular exercise helps protect brain cells against toxins, including free radicals and excess glutamate, helps repair damaged DNA, reduces the risk of cognitive impairment, heart disease, and stroke, improves cholesterol and fat metabolism, plus improving blood, oxygen, and glucose delivery to tissues, reduces risk of diabetes, osteoporosis, depression, colon, and breast cancer. Regular exercise is as effective as 12 sessions of psychotherapy. It is one of the best natural treatments for ADHD, anxiety, and depression. I recommend that you exercise a minimum of 30 minutes 5 times per week. In order for the exercise to be aerobic, you must have a sustained increased heart rate. Consider incorporating any exercise you enjoy: biking, swimming, walking, hiking, aerobic classes, CrossFit, or tennis. Set the bar low. Even if you commit to walking to the end of the block and back every day, it's a start. Now let's talk about the psychological plan, which includes cognitive behavioral therapy. This type of therapy helps you recognize how distorted, inaccurate, and fear-based thinking affects your mood and, in turn, your life, and teaches you effective tools for changing them. This is particularly helpful for a negativity bias that perpetuates a depressing and fear-based perspective on life and relationships. Oftentimes, a 12-week series of sessions can give you the skills necessary to change your thought patterns. So my doctor said, although I don't think you need it right now, it is good to keep this in mind in the future. So I'd like to say something about this comment from my doctor. In just 1 week, these brain and body Power Max supplements took me from being suicidal to being so clear-minded that my doctor didn't even recommend cognitive behavioral therapy. This definitely speaks to the effectiveness of these supplements. But I also wanted to say this. I really wanted this to work. I've been looking for a solution for a long time. As many of you know, if you take supplements thinking they're not going to work, then they probably won't. My doctor recommended some reading. He says, I suggest checking out this book called Brain Energy by Christopher Palmer out of Harvard. This will enlighten you further on the concept of mitochondrial health for your brain and mood. The follow-up reads as follows. Consider a follow-up scan in 6 to 12 months to check progress. In our experience, a follow-up scan can be a very powerful aid to track your progress and fine-tune your treatment. All right, now let's talk about the Brain Optimization Information Packet. The Amen clinics are all about helping you to optimize your brain. When I received my results, they sent me this information packet, which I wanted to share with you today. How long will it take for medication or supplements to show effects? Some medications and supplements begin working within an hour or two of taking them. Others can take up to 2 to 3 months to demonstrate a significant response. Balanced diet. The balanced diet is basically about learning how to put together perfectly balanced meals that promote maximum health, wellness, and performance. The primary principle of this diet is that each meal and snack be made up of a combination of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats in a very specific ratio: 40% carbohydrates, 30% protein, and 30% fat. Many people eat meals that are either too high in carbohydrates or too high in protein or fat. They don't actually think about the ratio of the macronutrients in the meal. When you begin to balance every meal as close as possible to the 40-30-30 ratio, you can experience balanced blood sugar and energy levels throughout your day. Unlike some other diets, the balanced diet also emphasizes that not all carbohydrates, fats, and proteins are the same. It is imperative that healthy fats, lean proteins, and low glycemic complex carbohydrates are chosen. A carbohydrate with a low glycemic index breaks down more slowly, therefore causing a much slower and more gradual release of glucose into the bloodstream. Kill the ants. ANT stands for automatic negative thoughts, the cynical, gloomy, and complaining thoughts that come into your mind automatically. Think of these negative thoughts like ants at a picnic that infest your mind and spirit and ruin your day. Did you know that every time you have a thought, your brain releases chemicals that have a direct impact on how you feel? Thoughts are real and powerful. Every time you have a thought that is good, happy, hopeful, kind, or loving, your brain releases chemicals that make you feel good. However, when you have thoughts that are negative, mad, sad, hopeless, or helpless, your brain releases chemicals that make you feel bad. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy involves breathing oxygen in a pressurized chamber in which the atmospheric pressure is raised up to 3 times higher than normal. A hard chamber delivers about 2.7 times atmospheric pressure, and a soft chamber delivers up to 1.3 times atmospheric pressure. Under these conditions, your lungs can gather more oxygen than would be possible breathing at normal air pressure. The increased oxygen facilitates the healing process. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy can be used to treat all conditions which benefit from more oxygen being available in the body's tissues. It has been used to improve many disorders including traumatic brain injury, carbon monoxide poisoning, sports injuries, autism, cerebral palsy, Alzheimer's disease, stroke, Lyme disease, migraine, multiple sclerosis, and vascular dementia. The benefits of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Often, healing is inhibited by a restriction of blood flow and oxygen to the injured part of the body. With HBOT, healing is promoted by maximizing the amount of oxygen in the blood that can reach the injured area, and it provides this extra oxygen naturally with minimal side effects. HBOT also delivers up to 15 times more oxygen to the body's tissues, stimulates the body's natural mechanisms for self-healing, and is highly effective for the treatment of a wide range of serious conditions and diseases. So maybe you're wondering, what makes Amen Clinics different from everybody else? I got some information directly off of their website, which says, our brain imaging work clearly shows that we are not dealing with mental health issues. Rather, we are dealing with brain health issues that steal your mind. At Amen Clinics, we believe that brain health is the foundation of overall health, well-being, and success. When the brain is healthy, people are happier, physically healthier, wealthier, and they make better decisions, which helps them be more successful in every area of life. When the brain is not healthy, for whatever reason, people are sadder, sicker, poorer, and their decision-making suffers, which diminishes their chances for getting what they want out of life. Unlike traditional psychiatry that rarely looks at the organ it treats, we use brain SPECT imaging, which measures blood flow and activity in the brain to help us more accurately diagnose and treat your needs. Our comprehensive evaluations also include laboratory testing when necessary, clinical assessments, your personal history, and more. This helps us provide you with a comprehensive, personalized treatment plan utilizing the least toxic, most effective solutions to enhance brain health. Achieving our mission to boost brain health not only helps individuals prevent or alleviate suffering, but it also helps everyone around them, family members, friends, and coworkers. In addition, helping one person's brain can create a lasting legacy that will empower and improve the lives of their future generations. Our unique, well-researched process results in higher than average success rates. In fact, we perform outcome studies on our patients, which have found that 85% of people report a better quality of life after treatment at the Amen clinics. The most important lesson we have learned from over 250,000 brain scans is that you are not stuck with the brain you have. You can change your brain and change your life, and we can help you do it. Dr. Daniel Amen's mission is to end mental illness by creating a revolution in brain health. He is dedicated to providing the education, products, and services to accomplish this goal. Okay, let me attempt to wrap all of this up for you. Without any proof whatsoever, almost everyone believes that everything happens for a reason. But it's really hard for me to make sense of what I've been through. 16 years of unhappiness. I lost a ton of great jobs, friends, and girlfriends. I felt depressed, I was anxious, I had suicidal thoughts, I had morning depression, and I was unmotivated. I can only imagine what I would have been able to accomplish if only I had a healthy brain. During the past 16 years, I gave up on my coffee shop, wrote 3 suicide notes, have felt like a defective human being, and at times even felt like a social outcast. To make matters worse, I've subconsciously been mad at my parents for bringing me into this world. Even so, they've stuck by me every step of the way. These supplements are a bit expensive, but how can you put a price on happiness? I've gone 3 weeks with no depression, 3 weeks with no suicidal thoughts, and 3 weeks with no incessant negative thoughts. Not only that, but my chronic stiff neck is finally getting better. For those of you who are still watching, I wanted to share some amazing statistics that might motivate you to be good to your brain. Number 1. As we discussed earlier, blood flow to the brain is extremely important. Here's the thing. If you've got low blood flow, this affects your entire body. According to Dr. Amen, 40% of 40-year-olds and 70% of 70-year-olds have erectile dysfunction. If this doesn't motivate you, then I'm not sure that anything will. Number 2, another tip. I recently heard Dr. Amen say, "The prettiest brains I've ever seen take ginkgo biloba." If you're not familiar, this is a common supplement. To give you an idea of the proper dosage, the Brain and Body Power Max supplements contain 180 milligrams of ginkgo biloba extract. Number 3. And here's another statistic which hit home for me. Dr. Amen says that people who watch the news are 27% less happier in the afternoon. So I've got a bonus idea for you, which is something that was really helpful for me. My doctor also mentioned that I should eat a diet high in fiber. Apparently, it actually feeds the good bacteria in your gut, improving your digestion and overall health. I've been able to accomplish this by adding these flax, chia, and hemp seeds to a bowl of Greek yogurt. Anyway, if you plan to order any of these supplements, you should know that discount codes are readily available. Also, they have a try for free program, which I think is a very cool idea. You can learn more about it at brainmd.com/free-trial. Okay, one last item to talk about. I've got a pretty in-depth list of links for your use. I'll put all of them in the description of this video. That's all I've got for you today. The Amen Clinic has changed my life forever. Please be good to your brain, and also please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching my video. We will see you next time.